Welcome to the AZ Political Podcast. I'm Jim Sharpe. Here's our headlines this week. Republican State Senator Jake Hoffman filed an ethics complaint this week against Democratic State Senator Annalise Ortiz over her social media post about immigration enforcement activity. Hoffman says Ortiz needs to be held accountable for, quote, tipping off individuals being pursued by ICE, jeopardizing the safety of officers and law-abiding citizens. For her part, Ortiz says that sharing public info about law enforcement is protected First Amendment speech. It's kind of like a traffic app that alerts drivers to, police presence on a freeway. Headline number 2, Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs and State Superintendent Tom Horne are blaming each other for reported fraud in the Empowerment Scholarship Account program. Recently, 2 people from out of state pleaded guilty to defrauding ESA out of $110,000. Something Hobbs told Bruce and Gatos could have been avoided if Horne had not implemented a process, quote, where he stopped approving purchases under $2,000. Horne told KTAR's Mike Broomhead that the legislature passed and the governor signed a bill that created this approval process and that his office has gone back and, quote, collected or are in the process of collecting over $600,000 of improper purchases. And headline number 3, polling from Noble Predictive Insights says in the Republican race to replace Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs, Karen Taylor Robeson currently enjoys 37% of the Republican primary vote compared to 27% of Republican voters who say they'd vote for Congressman Andy Biggs. 36% say they are undecided in the Republican primary. But the most interesting numbers may be these. Arizona Republicans 65 and older, who can always be counted on to vote in elections, prefer Robeson 41% to 28% over Biggs. And Robeson has a slight edge among self-identifying Trump First Republicans. She has 33% of their support compared to Biggs's 29%. All right, let's talk to our guest this week on the AZ Political Podcast. This is Emily Ryan. Hi, Emily.
Hi, good to be here.
We've been on the radio before many times. I don't think we've ever been on camera before. So.
No.
Okay.
No, we have
all right. So she is a political consultant. She's with Copperstate Consulting. And for more than a dozen years, I think it's 14 years now, you've been working at the legislature?
17, 18 sessions.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I don't like to talk about it. It makes me feel old, but
I was going to say,
the truth
tell somebody
is,
they need to update the website.
Yeah, okay.
She represents Copperstate Consulting clients at the state capitol, both at the executive branch and the legislative branch.
That's correct.
So you're technically not just a political consultant, you're a lobbyist.
I am a lobbyist. I only use that word in certain circles where it's safe. But
right?
yes,
okay.
I am.
On camera, that's perfectly fine. So is lobbying the evil job that a lot of people think it is? Because, you'll hear somebody's running for office and they're like, well, they used to try to run kids over on bicycles. And you're like, well, I could still maybe vote for them. And then they're like, but they're also a lobbyist. Oh, my gosh. Right. What do lobbyists do and why is the job they do important?
Well, thank you for the question.
Yeah.
I do think it's an important job. And I think what most people don't realize is everyone is probably represented by a number of lobbyists at any given point in time. And that's whether your professional field, your union, your school district, the city you live in has lobbyists, charitable organizations, mothers groups, companies, everyone, higher education. So your interests are being represented as we speak on every level of government, city, state, Fed, by lobbyists right now. So it is an important job. I think lobbyists are the people that, we certainly wear the hat of the client we're representing. I'm a contract lobbyist, which means I have a big variety of clients. I don't lobby for one group.
Right.
So our firm functions much like a law firm would, where we'll take a client on, provided we have no conflicts, and we will then go represent them at the state capitol. And so that means having an understanding of that horrible, convoluted process down there for how a bill becomes a law.
Right.
Playing defense, stopping bad bills, in their terms bad, that would hurt their interests, or advancing legislation that would help them. And so it's being able to navigate that process for people, but also bringing state representatives and senators information they need about specific industries. We always hear unintended consequences. Well, you don't know that unless someone tells you. So that is an important function that lobbyists serve. But just like any profession, there are ethical and unethical lobbyists. There are people that push the boundaries of the law. We've seen that in Arizona history as scam. And, we've got a history of people, bad actors. When people sort of make big disparaging remarks about lobbyists and undue influence, I always say that responsibility really lies with the elected official who is accountable to voters to not be subjected to undue influence, to not have that impact them, and to take information and be able to make good decisions with it.
I think this is a very interesting topic, and now I've just decided that I completely want to go down this road.
Oh, no.
I'd like to learn more about this. I really would. All right. I've decided I'm changing everything. We're going to talk mostly about lobbying. This is a fascinating topic.
Okay.
It really is.
Let's do it.
I think it's a fascinating topic. And I'll ask you a couple other political questions. But I think people really don't know what lobbying is all about. So what are the state laws when it comes to lobbying? Can you can't obviously go out and buy a state senator a pickup so that they vote for your bill, right?
No. In fact, I spend such precious little money on senators. They probably wish I could or would spend more. But you can take people out for a meal and talk to them. I could take you to lunch, Senator Sharpe. Would you like to go to lunch and talk about this?
I don't know if I want to be called Senator Sharpe, but go ahead.
And there are senators and representatives more known for liking a lot of meals.
Okay.
That sort of becomes a thing. You can bring in burritos for the entire House of Representatives when they're working a late night. You can do things like that. I think that you can buy flowers for people.
Okay.
So if someone has a relative that passes, you could send them a floral arrangement.
Right.
But other than that, I believe if you're going to give them something of value, it has to be under $10.
Okay. Wow.
So the burlap sack of cash, if someone's doing that, they better hope no one's wearing a wire, which I will say that has happened in Arizona before.
Yes.
And
Yes,
because that is definitely illegal. And, campaign contributions are the same for everyone, but that is fully disclosed. And in fact, when I hope most people aren't having to spend their money on campaign contributions, but let's say I go to someone's website and donate to their campaign. I'm subject to all the same limitations anyone else would be.
Right.
And you do have to fill out your name, and if you're not retired, your occupation, and I have to write lobbyist. So it's completely disclosed. You'll see lobbyist or government affairs or political consultant. As a layperson, it would be very obvious. You know who's a lobbyist and how much money they gave him.
That's interesting. So do you generally hedge your bets when it comes to actually contributing to people's political campaigns? I mean, do you just give to everybody in case you have to deal with them at any time?
I hate this topic, by the way. I absolutely hate that you're asking me this.
You don't have to tell me if you don't want.
No. I'm just, we're in campaign season. So you can't give contributions during the legislative session.
Okay.
So that means if I've got a bill I'm trying to kill and it's in a hearing, I can't run quick, slip someone $100 in their website, as if that would sway them.
Right.
I tend to give contributions to people I think are smart, fair, and willing to have a meeting and listen to facts.
Okay.
I represent such a variety of clients. And again, no direct conflicts among clients, but certainly some clients have different interests or interests that closely align with a certain representative or senator more so than others. And so I don't really pick what I'm going to do based on that criteria. But if I think, that she's great or he's really intelligent, and even when he hates the message I'm bringing in, he will entertain a meeting, listen to the facts, and I feel like he's actually absorbing them and allowing that to influence his decision, even if he doesn't vote with me. And that's sort of my criteria is I like rational, calm, approachable people. I think that's good for Arizona. I have to live in this state. I'm a native. And how I spend my money and who I want to support, I allow myself to do that based on who I think is good overall.
So unlike most people who would make a political contribution, you don't necessarily give to people who align with your political beliefs, but you give to people who you think are reasonable, no matter what their held beliefs are, and intelligent.
That's exactly right. And, when you choose to become a lobbyist, your profession is advancing the agenda of the clients you take.
Right.
And that has to come ahead of your personal agenda.
Sure.
And also, I can't think of one single elected official in the history of time that aligns with me on all my beliefs. And I think I'm in good company. We're complex people. We have different thoughts on different things. So that would be an impossible criteria.
Unless you're Karen Taylor Robeson and Donald Trump, because she told me that she agrees with him on everything. Well, except she prefers Taco Bell over Big Macs.
McDonald's.
But,
all right. There's that.
But it does. This is where debate class comes in handy, right?
Yes.
Like you have to be able to see both sides of an issue. And I never did any actual lobbying, but I definitely wrote a lot of press releases for clients.
I'm sure.
Regarding political issues. And, you have to be able to go, well, this isn't exactly how I feel inside, but in the interest of the client, I'm putting this forth and I'm trying to see both sides. Right?
Yeah, and I feel like I've been lucky in my career because I haven't had to go out and lobby against some core belief I hold in my heart.
That's nice.
A lot of these issues, none of my friends want to hear what I'm working on around a dinner because a lot of them are really granular and boring. And you're getting into some kind of business regulation or, something that you really could see both sides. And of course you have your side and you have the facts and you believe and advocate for that. But it is important that you can understand the other side because how are you going to win if you don't understand the other side's argument?
Right, totally.
So, it's important, but a lot of these aren't, are you for or against murder? And, it's not that. It's usually pretty technical, detailed, granular.
Yeah.
You don't want to ask me about it over dinner. Okay, time out, enough. Let's talk about something fun.
Which is kind of funny because, these are definitely highly related fields, political consulting, media,
yes,
and lobbying. And yet I can't go anywhere without people wanting to talk about these very things. And I'm like, hang on a second. I do this for a living. Can we talk about football or
the Suns,
the weather?
Let's talk about basketball.
Anything, other than politics sometimes. But, I am the host of the AZ Political Podcast.
Everyone wants to talk about politics.
I know.
It's sort of one of those things. I think it's probably true of marketing as well. Everyone has an idea of what a great commercial is or what, and everyone has their own political views. And so it is something that everyone wants to talk about. And lately, everyone's really angry all the time.
Yeah.
Anger sells. And, so that's not so fun.
Yeah. Do you feel like things are becoming less angry at the legislature, or do you think they're becoming more angry? They're getting more angry.
No, far more angry. Angrier every year.
Really?
Yeah, it's really disappointing. I miss the decorum and the statesmanship and sort of this is how we behave here because we have some respect for this institution, this branch of government and this state. And now it's just... I really credit social media. It's sort of that nonstop audience, instant, quick hit. It's taken even headlines to a completely different level, and it's changed things.
And people are making money off of this outrage.
A lot of money.
And some people have entire operations set up and behind the scenes where they're making money off this outrage, and it's outrageous. Yeah. If you ask me.
Yeah, we're allowing ourselves to be manipulated all day,
some of them
every
are
day.
Elected officials that are doing this.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, you know what? In comparison to that, lobbying sounds like,
I know. I'm almost angelic now, aren't I?
You should be like skipping down the lane holding a basket of flowers. I'm just going to go see my friends at the legislature and tell them why they should vote for this thing because it's really good for Arizona.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Any clients that have blown up in your face? And you don't have to name names.
Yeah, I can't.
No, I know you can't. And you like me, I signed many, non-disclosure agreements, of course. But
yes.
Generally speaking, have you had a couple of clients, that you didn't realize what their actual intentions were until you had that second or third closed door meeting and you're like, whoa, hang on a second.
Yeah, I can think of a couple painful experiences come to mind. And one, I won't get into the topic because it would be revealing.
Okay.
But it was a client that did not disclose their real intentions. And I learned of them sitting in the gallery at the Senate when the Senate minority leader stood up and read a letter that was signed by my client that was into an area that we would not have accepted a client for that. So we had to fire them.
Okay.
So lobbyists do have standards. And, I had another client that really put me through the ringer on, again, painful, granular drafting of legislation all over Christmas, just draft after draft and working through the process and really clawing away, trying to get, a hearing here or a bill moving this way or, just a lot of political capital you're spending. And meanwhile, they were running a separate agenda. And at the very last minute, what I was doing was conflicting with their side agenda. And so they said, never mind, forget the whole thing.
Wow.
And that's after you've asked senators to cast votes in public that are controversial and put themselves on the record in your corner and do some big things. And that was very disheartening. And I had a bad feeling about it the whole time. So sometimes you can get burned. That's rare, though.
Yeah, and are there any clients on the flip side where you're like, oh, I can't believe I'm actually representing these people, and then you find out you kind of like them? And I'll just give one example from my past. The firm I was working for, we got hired to do some PR for a guy who preaches the gospel on television.
Okay.
So a televangelist. Mm-hmm. And I was like, my mom gave money to televangelists. I was like, I cannot believe I'm talking to this guy, in his $500 jeans and is driving a Range Rover, lives in PV. And it's like, I'm like, and then come to find out the guy had feeding centers and orphanages in the Philippines. Mm-hmm. And so while he preached prosperity, he also gave a lot of what he received to people who didn't have much. And so
that's cool.
I was like, yeah, all right, I have a completely different opinion of this guy than I initially did. And I'm actually going to give the benefit of the doubt to future people I meet that might be doing this. Have you had a client like that? You're like, oh, I can't believe I'm actually doing this job for them, but okay. No, they actually turned out to be pretty good. By
the time, lobbyists are competitive. And so we're all sort of scrambling for the same great clients. And we've got a pretty good book of clients, and you're so happy that you won and that you get to represent them. I haven't really had that crestfallen feeling, but I can say as politics have devolved over the last couple decades that I've been doing this, and everything's gotten more and more negative and more ugly, the thing that always rises to the top for me and makes the job feel worthwhile is being able to help normal people. And by normal people, I mean, it could be a group of citizens that banded together and hired a lobbyist, or it could be a corporation, but somebody who is otherwise
employees in that corporation.
Yeah, they're trying to function. Yeah. They're trying to provide jobs and benefits for people and live their lives. And when you're successful at helping them navigate a scary, negative, lawless feeling process, and things work out for them, that's really gratifying. And so I get a lot out of that. And I get more and more out of it as I find myself focusing on the client satisfaction, which probably makes them happy, but more so than being swept up in, hey, I'm down here with all these cool people, because there's just so much negativity at the Capitol lately.
Would you tell 20-year-old Emily Ryan, who, when she was at NAU, which, by the way, is a great school.
Go Lumberjacks.
Even though I didn't graduate from there, I went. I call it my alma mater. And would you tell her, this is what you should be doing? Or would you say, you know what? Try something else.
Well, 20-year-old Emily was smarter, apparently, because I minored in political science, and actually won a scholarship to go be the one NAU representative at the state capitol.
Oh.
And work along with the interns there. And after I won that, I turned it down, told him to give it to the second place person, and I got myself an internship at Fox 10. And so 21-year-old Emily,
your
communications.
In communications, right? Okay.
21-year-old Emily thought, these people seem kind of full of themselves. And I took a completely different route that boomeranged me right back to where apparently I was supposed to be.
People aren't full of themselves.
I know. What was I thinking?
Yeah.
But I did work in sales and marketing and had some other career experience, which, again, makes me sound older than dirt. But it is beneficial when I'm down at the Capitol, because my whole world is not that building and that group of people. And it probably helps me understand my clients and their worries a little bit better.
Yeah. It's like, because actually working in politics and public relations was a side, I stepped aside from doing media to do that. And I'm so glad I did, because I got to see a little bit of a different world. Yeah. I also got to see what a world is like where you don't have to get up at 2:00 in the morning to do a morning show. But,
Well, and by the way, that's what's missing. It's sort of a trend you're seeing with a lot of elected officials is some of that outside world experience.
Yeah.
Arizona was supposed to be a part-time legislature. Now it runs to July. And that's because everyone had careers and jobs, and that need to function under the rules they made was a great perspective that they all brought to the Capitol. And more people's only profession is legislator. And that has changed things.
Do you think that this next legislative session is going to be angrier than the last one? Because
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's going to be terrible.
Yeah?
It's going to be terrible. With the last one, we had a lot of, your typical between party fighting. And the Republicans hold the majority and are the controlling party, but not by much. So, that makes the stakes high for everybody. But within the Republican ranks, you had the House and the Senate at each other's throat, not getting along. You had Republicans within each caucus in the House and Senate fighting with each other over who's more Republican. And now we're going to add to that this is an election year, not just an election year, a gubernatorial election year. So what happens when you have candidates for governor calling legislators saying, don't give Governor Hobbs a win. Don't do it. Don't help. Everything is just going to be very amplified. And we have a big budget issue too. We're facing maybe a $450 million deficit if we conform to the big, beautiful bill tax changes.
Right.
And that's normally kind of a nothing. That's normally sort of a perfunctory, we conform to the federal tax code. Great. Everyone's for it. This year, if we do it, that's going to be a big cut. So it's going to make simple things hard.
Wow. Man.
I'm dreading it.
I don't, you know what? I have a lot more hope for the lobbying profession as decent human beings, and I've always liked you.
Thank you.
Personally, that's never been an issue, but I have less hope for our legislative future.
Well, I don't want to paint that picture. I just think that sometimes things have to build to a crescendo before you get a break and things change a little bit.
Right.
And everything's temporary. I always tell people, if you hate the results of the last election, if you love them, none of it's going to last forever.
That's true.
It's all very temporary. So it'll be all right.
No, we've seen
But it's going to be an ugly year. But it'll be all right after that.
Yeah. Well, and you know what drives me crazy, though, is when people always say, well, at least you got something to talk about, right? Like, I'm like, yeah, this is my home state too, though,
Exactly.
and I'm an American. I
Right.
don't want to see our country or our state fall apart just so I've got something to talk about
We
on the
can
radio.
talk about positive things.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd be for things going well, and we could talk about that.
Tell me something positive that's going to happen in the next year politically.
Oh, goodness.
See, you can't.
I know. It's hard to predict. Well, in the next year, we'll have some excitement. We're going to have either another term of Governor Hobbs or a complete tide change.
Yeah.
I think that when the numbers aren't so tight or when chambers aren't split, maybe people won't fight so much.
Maybe, yeah. Although it's strange, you mentioned this, the Republican infighting has gotten pretty bad. I mentioned that, I mentioned Jake Hoffman earlier, but going after Senator Ortiz, who's a Democrat, but he's also primarily the reason that Tom Horn, who's also a Republican, is going to have a challenger in Kimberly Yee because he doesn't like the way that he's handling the ESA program, and Horn's getting it from the Democrats on this side and from the Republicans on that side. You can't.
He really is.
Either you can't scrutinize anything or you're not scrutinizing enough, and it's and even this has brought it to the point where Senator Hoffman's looking for the GOP chair for the state, Gina Swoboda, to go away. Too.
Right.
So it's going to be an interesting year of infighting and the two parties fighting each other, I guess.
It is. We may have to look for our silver linings outside of the political process.
Okay. All right. So maybe next time you're on the AZ Political Podcast, we can talk about dogs.
Okay. Schnauzers specifically. Yes.
Yeah. My wife loves Schnauzers, and you got a really exceptionally cute one. What's
Benjamin?
Benjamin. That's right.
Named after my grandfather.
Oh,
yes.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And we got a Schnauzer mix that we rescued named Teddy, he really can't even call him a dog because he's not even as big as a hamster. So
he's travel size.
Oh, yeah. Pocket travel size.
That's great.
Yeah. He can get on any plane because he doesn't contain enough liquid that you can't get past TSA. Well, thanks, Emily. I really did have a whole list of questions here about, whether, Karen Taylor Robeson lost credibility with moderate Republicans with their Trump endorsement and all that. But I'm really glad we did this.
Well, thank you. It was fun to change gears and sort of talk about the world behind the curtain. But I'll come back anytime. We'll talk about those other things.
Okay, for sure. And do you feel like I changed my mind about lobbyists in general?
I feel like you're a pretty fair-minded guy all along. I've never gotten that hostility.
Never gotten
off
that
of
vibe.
you.
Yeah.
No.
Well, all right. Well, there you go. Thanks for watching the AZ Political Podcast. Thank you to Emily Ryan, my guest from Copperstate Consulting. I'm Jim Sharpe, and we'll see you real soon.
Thanks for watching the AZ Political Podcast with Jim Sharpe. Click the box to watch more from KTAR News and tap the button in the middle to subscribe.